Hi, my name is Madison Coletti. I'm a student at Grand Canyon University. Today I'm going to walk through a lesson plan that I created about evolution by natural selection with focus on Galapagos finches. The assignments that I created for my lesson plan all follow this one objective. Given the data, fossil records, or genetic data, students will generate observations to reasonably predict the relatives of an individual organism. So before I begin the lesson plan, I would ask the students and try to, figure out what their prior knowledge is on evolution by natural selection and Galapagos finches, since that's the animal that we're going to be focusing on to reach our objective. So I would first play this video. It's just a video of a researcher, filming these different types of finches in their very unique habitats, natural habitats, their natural environments. And as the video is playing, I would ask the students to identify 3 or more observations, continuing to go back to that objective of, creating observations to connect relatives. And then based on those observations, we would take it a step further. What can you infer? So based on what I see, what do I think is happening? Why do I think I see the things that I do in the video? And then I would ask the students, do you think these birds are the same species? So again, trying to figure out if they have the ability to make observations and connect individuals to one species. And also, are they found in the same location? Why or why not? So the Galapagos Islands are super incredible because they have all these different environments, which allow different types of species to develop from just one kind. So it's very interesting. And I think it's a great way to kind of see what they've learned about natural selection, evolution, Galapagos Islands, and our finches. Next, I would have a guest speaker. So here we have Jack Horner, and he is discussing how we can build dinosaurs from chickens. Like, that is quite the phenomenon. And I think students will find something about the video very interesting. So this 16-minute video would most likely be a homework assignment after, prying out the prior knowledge and trying to make sure I'm fixing any misconceptions. And I just really want to ask the students, what do you find interesting about the video? So that way I can get an idea of where can I lead this lesson to go, that's going to follow their interests. What questions do they have? Sometimes students have the ability of making lessons for us, and that could definitely change the next steps I have in my lesson plan. But I think that's a great question just to see if they have any questions. And then finally, what does this process mean for science in the future? And this is something I always try to do in my science classes, where we try to connect it to something big overall, like the big picture. How does this one part fit in it? Finally, I would go ahead and present the information to the students. So theory and principles of natural selection notes, where this would be a lecture style of giving information to students. But I would try to engage them and encourage class discussions. So this is an example of the notes where I asked the students, why do you think the green beetles were selected against? And here it looks like we have some American crows. And so I'd ask the students, what patterns can we identify? What do you know about genetic diversity and carrying on traits? Is this any similarity to like antibiotics and bacteria and their ability to become resistant? So it's just a great opportunity to, again, pull out some information that the students already know and kind of spark up those conversations. Here's another example from the notes where I would ask the students to observe possibly a think, pair, share, check it out for yourself, talk to your partner, and then as a class, we come together and discuss what they think, how they think this image connects to natural selection and evolution. This is another example of images that would be found in my presentation, where these are organisms actually found in the Galapagos Islands. And then we can kind of explore, for example, our Galapagos tortoise, how come they have larger necks? What are some inferences that we can make based on the physical appearance that their genes have caused? And finally, we would go ahead and focus in on the Galapagos finches, since that was the purpose of that was the focus that we were going to try to connect to the objective of connecting relatives together based on observations. And I think that birds and dogs and natural selection, artificial selection must be addressed so that way students understand, even though all dogs came from wolves, there is a difference between artificially selecting genes and creating specific organisms in comparison to natural selection. This is the next assignment in my lesson plan. This is the hands-on assignment for my kinesthetic learners, natural selection simulation. So this is actually the handout that the students would fill out as they're completing the simulation. And here's an example of what the simulation looks like. So as you can see, the students have the ability to manipulate what the bird looks like. And then they also have the ability to control what type of food is there. So this should be a great connection to, oh, hey, we learned about this in lecture, and now I'm actually applying and manipulating what I learned. So I'm going to create some observations and then try to use those observations as evidence to prove that these species of finches came from a common ancestor. And finally, to summarize my lesson plan, I would provide this formative assessment. So these are just some multiple choice questions. Here we have the diagram that they saw in their notes and the diagram that they should have unknowingly been manipulating in our hands-on simulation. And I would also provide some written responses where we're asking students to observe how genetically the beaks have changed over time, and what is that suggesting about their ability to capture food, and how can that observation connect our species to a common ancestor. As you can see, this lesson plan would take a few days instead of just one class period. I do believe that learning takes time, and I think it's really important to give the students the ability to digest, to ask questions, to discuss. So this lesson plan would take a few days, and over those few days, I accomplished many different differentiation strategies. For example, I was addressing visual learners by starting off with that video where students can visually put themselves in a scenario where they see all these different types of birds in their very unique habitats. And I also provided a guest speaker. So I understand that although my voice is very intriguing to listen to, not all students, can learn from the same type of person. So I think, having an expert like Jack to come into the classroom virtually and discuss his expertise in that TED Talk would really address the audio learners. The engaging lecture where I asked students questions and really sparked up those classroom discussions, and the hands-on simulation for the kinesthetic learners. So the handout and the simulation all occurs digitally, where students can manipulate, and there's no right answer. So students could try any type of manipulation with that simulation and still, gather observations to support that the relatives come from a common ancestor. So for the closure, the formative assessment that I provided, the ability to write or type formative assessment answers is something that I always use in my classroom. Some students don't have the best handwriting or just feel more comfortable typing their answers, so I always give that for them. Multiple choice and short answers in the formative assessment, I think that is a way to differentiate how we are asking questions and how we are asking students to provide their answers. This formative assessment, I most likely would have had peer grading, just to make sure that there were no misconceptions or if there's any other questions that could kind of help us guide to what they want to learn next in natural selection and evolution. So overall, I provided about a week's lesson plan, but all of these activities go back to that objective of students being able to gather observations from information to support that relatives come from a common ancestor.